if there's transparency, then you can work through those and people will see that that's what's in it for them, is they're going to get something as opposed to nothing. I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas, and a lot of people don't get that from me because I don't have a very strong accent. I majored in art history, and before I started my career in SaaS, I planned on pursuing a PhD in 19th century Spanish decorative arts. I speak 5 languages fluently, and I have 2 kids and a partner. So I speak Spanish, English, Portuguese, Catalan, and French.
Awesome. In 2021, I'm looking to learn German and learn French.
I started my career in SaaS in the sales side. And so I'm also just very much a get my hands dirty kind of professional. So for example, when I was logging things in Salesforce, I was always asking someone who was in sales ops, wait, why are we doing it this way? And like, wouldn't it be better if we did this? And so I have a lot of interest in efficiency naturally. And so for me, sales works really well, not just when you're generating revenue, but when the required steps are easy to do, right? So I got really interested in revenue operations and just how those things make a sales program work, and also the points of failure that can make it a really painful thing to be a salesperson. And then I was actually working on Latin America. I took Zendesk into Latin America many years ago, back in like 2011, 2012 was our first entry. And that was where you realized that it's all well and good when you've got everything run from headquarters, but operationally, there are some changes that need to happen when you go into a new market. For example, just thinking of something as basic as what currency are you expressing things in your CRM, and do you need to change that? But then the real operational kind of revelation for me was when I moved away from direct sales and into partner sales. One of the things that I've really loved about partnerships in general is that if you are working on the partner side, you really have 3 audiences, right? One of them are the AEs, or like whoever it is that your sales team is working with. And then you've got your partners, and then you've also still got your clients on the other side, right? Like, and they're going to be liaising either with both of those, depending on what your channel strategy is. And so it's important to be able to be transparent with all of them, while at the same time keeping things that need to be confidential. Like, I know, for example, one of the things that we run into in SaaS in every company I've ever worked in is partners always want to have access to the roadmap, right? But a partner with you might also be partnering with one of your competitors, and so you really don't want to expose too much of your roadmap, because they could then disclose it perhaps by accident, right? Like, I always want to assume that people are doing things with positive intent, but it might mean that, some of your trade secrets get out there. So you have to, that's a tough needle to thread. And It's one that I was lucky enough to have a really strong relationship with our legal team. And so, because I had worked on a lot of big contracts. And so when I moved into the partner operations side, we were able to have a really open dialogue about, what does confidential mean? And are we allowed to share confidential information with a partner if they're under NDA? Like, what's our appetite for risk there? And how much do we see that as like, okay, the risk is so high that we would rather not be transparent, or the risk of not being transparent here is so high that it might hurt our trust, and therefore we're going to go with it. So it was really case by case on that. When I was doing resale initiatives in Latin America, basically we would sell to the partner at a lower rate, and then so we would take an X percentage haircut on that deal. And at first, a lot of the AEs who had never worked with partners before were really hesitant to turn it over to a reseller, and because we were only going to commission them on the money that we received, so X percent did affect their commission. However, the way that I would always put it to them is, if we don't go through a reseller and this company can't pay in local currency, you're going to get 0%, you're going to get 100% of nothing. Right. I'm offering you X percent of this, and that was when, the first few deals people were hesitant, but once they realized that resellers a lot of times paid in a more timely manner than our clients did, and that would mean processing commissions faster, they were a lot happier about that. And then when they started realizing that the reseller also took over, in those cases, all of the, post-sales stuff, like they basically became customer success, It's like, okay, yeah, it's a percentage of your commission lost, but now you're not having to follow up with that client. You're only getting questions from the reseller. They're much more knowledgeable about our product, and they're out there building leads for you. And so it became a really popular approach, and it remains so within the Latin America team. And at Zendesk specifically, but the partner approach, it has its pros and cons, but I think if there's transparency, then you can work through those and people will see that that's what's in it for them, is they're going to get something as opposed to nothing, which honestly, like, that's a pretty easy spectrum to choose.
And in those instances, would you consider that sell with, I don't know if you use that terminology, or sell to and sell through?
So it really depended. It was kind of deal by deal, but when I work with a reseller, I usually, especially if the reseller sourced the deal, a lot of times we would let the reseller run with a client and let them own the relationship. And we on the back end could fulfill questions that they had, or if they had, more advanced security questions, we could do that and kind of work with them as an extension of our sales team. And then there's the co-sell, which is where you're working with a client. The client wants someone local. We don't have anyone located in Bogota, but we do have a really high quality partner. So we put them in touch with that partner, and we're still in the deal, but we're co-selling the deal.
Okay.
And then there's just the pass through, which is where basically you do the entire deal cycle and they throw the curveball on the last day. That's like, oh yeah, we really want to sign, but I noticed that this is in USD and I really need it in pesos. And so that's when suddenly you have to do a pass through where you engage a reseller to be able to push the paperwork through.
That's so interesting. And those are components and dynamics that I don't think come to everyone's mind right at the bat. When you're thinking about going global, I think most people just stick to whatever currency they're used to, US dollar, euro, whatever it is. And then when you drill it down and you want to cater to the local market, you have to really understand what their restrictions are and what parameters they're working with.